unfortunately a downer. It's Jimmy Butler, done for the year with a torn ACL. There are a number of things we can talk about here with regards to Jimmy individually, the Warriors as a team, but it's worth noting that going into, or by the end of that game that Jimmy got hurt in, the Warriors were on a season-long 4-game winning streak. They had won 12 of 16. They had really solidified themselves at least within that top 8, but they were knocking on the door of the top 6 seed. You could kind of maybe squint and see a fringe contender that had ample justification to go make a bigger move and maybe give Steph one more chance to win. Safe to say they're just absolutely cooked now?
Yeah, I think when you look at the situation, everything was looking up for the Warriors in terms of saying, hey, we've got everything looking the way we want it to be. We make this Kuminga trade. Maybe then we get into that contender conversation, depending on what you get back. Now that's all out the window. Jimmy's out of the picture. That was your Robin to Steph's Batman. And you could go any way from here, right? Is it a conversation of, hey, I think for me, the first conversation is you approach Jimmy respectfully and say, hey, we're just trying to do right by Steph. Would you give us your blessing on a trade to move your contract and see what we can bring in? Beyond that, you have a conversation with Steph. I don't think Steph wants to go anywhere. I think he's prepared to just take whatever comes in Golden State and ride it out. But if there is some sort of inkling to say, I do want to max out these last few years, and it looks like we're in the middle of nowhere here now, maybe that's a conversation that needs to be had. I don't think either way it's going to happen before the trade deadline. Maybe it's something for the summer, but this very much now feels like a lost season. Yeah,
I don't think they would trade Steph, and I don't think he's ever going to want out, but I think the fact that we can even think about it is a testament to just how toast they seem after this injury.
Yeah, I mean, the Jimmy Butler trade. I mean, you and I sat on this couch a year ago, almost a year ago exactly today, and said, this team looks like it's cooked. The window looks like it's closed. Looks like we're done. They make this Jimmy Butler trade, give up, I think, less than I thought that they were going to give up, and it really gave them life. Playing well this year, 25-20. Jimmy Butler playing amazing this year for, I think he's 36 or 37. And they he signed this extension to a 2-year window, right? Everybody lines up. I think Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy are all done in 2 years. So you thought, hey, we have this window. We've got all our draft picks. We can make a move and be a contender. And it's so crazy to have gone full circle all the way back around to now, Logan Murdoch reported that all the assistants on the staff are assuming Steve Kerr's gone after the end of the year, which to me is also a huge part of this thing because it's Steph can stay as long as he wants, but if Steve Kerr is gone, then what are we even looking at next year?
Yeah, and as much as Curry is obviously the center of their universe, a lot of the identity in terms of the way they play and the way they build things around Curry was a Steve Kerr design, right? People remember, or maybe people have forgotten because it's been so long now, but over a decade ago when he took over from Mark Jackson, he changed their offense. They were already a decent defensive team that somehow wasn't making the most offensively out of having Steph, out of having Clay, and it was Steve Kerr's offensive imagination and the motion offense and the read and react stuff that kind of unlocked Steph in the way that it did. So that's another kind of part of this, right? Jimmy going down and they're not really contending or doing much of anything in the short term, their ability to even get to contender status where the move has been affected, then if they potentially lose Kerr, then I'm at the point where it's again, I wouldn't expect Curry to want out or be moved, but it's a conversation worth having, and that just shows you how important Jimmy, as the first domino, has been to this team.
Yeah, I think the first route, if you're the Warriors, is to kind of look at Milwaukee, not in terms of the transactions that they've done, but in terms of the urgency and the respect they've tried to show Giannis in saying, hey, we value you. We will literally do anything. And if you look at the Jimmy situation, you think back to obviously a much smaller scale where when the DeAnthony Melton injury happened, they said, okay, how do we pivot out of this? They get to the Schroeder contract, and then that evolves into what was eventually the Jimmy Butler deal. And so I think this is a situation now where you have that conversation respectfully with Jimmy and say, hey, this obviously didn't go the way we hoped for. We would have loved to see it play out with you and Steph, but right now it's about doing right by Steph. And so is there a deal that matches up with Jimmy's contract where you'd obviously have to surrender other assets to make it appealing to the other team, that you can maybe try and make something of this season, along with a Kuminga trade.
Yeah, there's a couple names. Like, I mean, you first of all, you mentioned the Bucks, and I know you weren't mentioning them as a trade partner for the Warriors to send Giannis, but that does come to mind where it's like, hey, if they use Jimmy's contract as salary filler and they put Kuminga in there and they basically give up as many picks as they can or Milwaukee wants, would that be enough to get Giannis? And then if you have this version of Steph and Giannis still in his prime or late prime at the very worst, can you contend in the West? AD is a guy that's obviously kind of on the block, maybe not, but again, it's like if there was Steph and Jimmy, and you told me, hey, the Warriors might make like an all-in play for AD, I still might not support it, but I could at least be like, hey, they're trying. Like, they're trying to give Steph one more shot to win it. Jimmy going down, it's like, I don't know, even AD, like, if the Warriors got AD tomorrow, right, using Butler's contracts and picks, I don't know, and it was Steph and AD, and Draymond might even be in that move, I don't know. But say it was like Steph and AD and whatever they have left as kind of like the core around them. In this West, without Butler, is that even a contender to you?
No, I don't think so. And I think that's the interesting thing about where they're at now is like to construct a trade that doesn't include Jimmy Butler is like basically your whole roster. And it also depends on you hanging on to Kuminga, who I'm sure we'll get into, but that is like a whole other can of worms. They do have the pick equity, which I think is kind of honestly the only thing that keeps them in the mix for these guys. But, to your point, it's kind of like, it's like Jimmy Butler last year, right? Like, yes, we said they made the Jimmy Butler trade and that you kind of put them in maybe fringe contender territory. What does Anthony Davis do for this team? At his absolute peak, what does Anthony Davis do for this team? It's interesting to say even Giannis, like, I don't think that makes them contenders. But to your previous point, like, what is it worth to the Warriors? Like, to be good in the last few years of Steph's career might be worth giving up all you have to get Giannis.
Yeah, I think this also brings up an interesting conversation about Draymond because part of this inflexibility is I think we're used to seeing third guys who can elevate themselves to a second-tier guy. And Draymond is very much like, I need to be the third guy. I need to be a facilitator. I need to be an all-world defender.
Because there's offensive limitations there, where there's like individual offense, right?
Exactly. And so I think that's the part where if he can't score at the level you need, how much does that second guy really change?
Well, and that's why, like, to get back to Jimmy, why this is so deflating and debilitating for the Warriors. Like, I don't think people realize how good Jimmy Butler was playing this year. It was kind of quiet because the Warriors weren't, killing it and they weren't at the top of the West, but he was a big reason they were even where they were. Like, you pull up some of the numbers, but he's, essentially he was averaging 20 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and a steal on 65% true shooting. He does a lot of the work inside the arc that no one else on this team, other than maybe Kuminga on like a very like diet Jimmy level, which we can talk about, like no one else in this roster is capable of. His ability to get to the free throw line, work inside the arc, guard opposing stars, get downhill, which no one else can really do on this guard heavy team. Like all of those things were so important to keep the Warriors from being a one-dimensional team. And it even shows in his value. Like, I prepped some stats here, but it's like he was, leading the team in total minutes when he went down. He actually had the highest on-off net on the team, higher than Steph. And then some of the advanced stats love him, like value over replacement player, team leading and top 13 league-wide. Win shares, team leading and third in the league, which is remarkable, again, considering it's not like the Warriors are on pace for 60 wins here. They're on pace to be like a 45 to 50 win team. And the guy that most people would say is their second best player is top 3 in the league in win shares. He was having a phenomenal year.
And the big thing that changed since he came over were the non-Steph minutes.
Yes.
Right? When you look at...
They were winning them now.
Yeah. The biggest problem that they had before that trade was that the team just completely fell apart when Steph was off the floor. And when Jimmy came in, like you said, he was able to operate out of the post. He's able to get to the bucket. He's able to drive. And you look at the free throw rate of the Warriors prior to the trade and after. He has single-handedly changed that. And the way he's been able to make teammates better, that is something that is going to be so, so difficult to replace now.
Almost impossible, honestly. Like, I don't know how you replace that. Like, I think we saw it right off the bat. He goes down their first game against the Raptors, and they just get crushed.
They look like a shell of themselves.
And then I think now is probably a good time to get into the Kuminga of it, because that's a situation where if you had a good relationship with this guy and you had, I'm not going to pretend I know whose fault it is that this isn't working out. Seems like a bit of both. But like if you had developed this guy, then that's another guy that steps in. Like clearly from a role perspective, he's going to come in and play the Jimmy Butler role, but obviously he's not going to play it half. He's going to give you maybe part of the offense, but nothing else. And that's just another situation where, like, we can talk all we want about how good Steph is, like, how great the Butler trade is, but it's like the Kuminga thing is just like such an organizational failure from a team that like did not fail for a good 8 years, and I just think like there's a huge magnifying glass on it now. That's the reason why there's no future here.
That's a great point. And then you'd like tie that to like the James Wiseman pick. There was a lot that went into it, but the Kuminga one is like the one staring us in the face right now. I think that game against the Raptors that you mentioned was kind of like a good reminder of how it is. Both parties are at fault, the Warriors and Kuminga, where it's like, you look at even that game. Again, like I was saying, Kuminga's the only one on the roster that can even come close to replicating what Jimmy can do inside the arc, right? With some rim pressure, getting to put pressure on the defense inside the arc. And it was very obvious, like anyone looked at that roster could have said that, and yet he didn't start that game. And like they didn't go to him until I think later in the first half, and he didn't really start getting an opportunity until the second half. So there's stubbornness on Steve Kerr's part there to be like for whatever reason, like I don't like this guy. He doesn't fit my system, which maybe Kuminga's like not the highest IQ player, and that read and react system isn't great for him. But there are definitely times when the Warriors can use him more than they've been using him, and that's a fault of theirs. From Kuminga's... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, from Kuminga's perspective, he has to be more realistic about his place in the NBA. And I know self-awareness is tough for pro athletes in general because their whole life they've been the man, right? And then they get to a certain level, and it's like, now you're a role player. Maybe it's not easy to have that self-awareness. But Kuminga does have to have that self-awareness at some point, and Mike Dunleavy... Warriors executive, dude. Former player turned Warriors executive. I don't know if everyone saw the quote the other night where he said, when a player demands a trade or something, there also has to be demand on the market, which is essentially saying no one wants you, Kuminga.
But also, like, what I love to do when I have like a pretty high-profile player that I'm trying to trade? I love to get out in front of a group of people and just tank the trade value. Like, I just want to talk shit about him. I just want to make sure nobody wants to trade for this guy. Like, I get it. That's where we're at. Very clearly, like, Kuminga's side is accounting for, a great deal of the frustration, not just Steve Kerr above it. But, like, you're the Golden State Warriors. Like, don't go out in public and shit on your own players. Like, I just think that's like, regardless of what's going on, which we're all aware of, like, I just think that's such a terrible look. And especially, like, it looks even worse now just given where they're at with everything.
Yeah, and that's the part that surprises me from the Warriors standpoint, where you went into the offseason knowing that, first off, you wanted to see if there was a trade. And then you finally arrived at, okay, it's not going to happen right now. Maybe his contract's not at a value where it's tradable for the guys that we want. And so we're going to give you this extension, but we know, wink, wink, that this is just about moving you in Feb. And if you know that, then play your cards from there, right? Show that, hey, this is someone who can be a valuable asset to another franchise, and showcase him accordingly. I mean, how many times do we see that?
Don't sit him for 16 straight games or
and
whatever.
And that's the part that, leaves me baffled. And I think Steve Kerr should have put his ego aside in that regard. I mean, he could literally put his ego aside with Draymond walking off the court on him. Yeah. And he couldn't do that with this. It's a bit concerning that, he's being that rigid on it.
And like, if you're a championship contender, fine, sit whoever you want for 16 games in a row. Like, you got a first-round pick, whatever. It's like, you need this guy, whether you need him playing for your team or you need him playing, showcasing for other teams. Like, I just find it, I'm so baffled by it. Like, I just, like, I can't wait till he gets traded and we get to read the whole thing to be like, why is this happening? Because it just seems like he is the piece that they have to move. Like, he was the piece they have to move. He is the piece they have to move. And you just continue, like, you tank his value by not playing with him.
Absolutely.
And just quickly, if they play their cards right, you had Kuminga having just averaged 20 plus in the playoffs against the Wolves, looking pretty good. If he had shown that and was given the opportunity to do that at the start of the season, maybe there's other front offices saying, hey, you know what? We would love to have that version on our team.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, or pretend, because then at least other teams can look and be like, oh, wow, he's playing. This is great. Instead, it's like everywhere you look, it's like, why would I offer you anything of value for a guy you clearly do not only like, you don't like the way he plays basketball, you clearly don't care for the way he is as a person, because you wouldn't go out in public and talk this much shit about him. You know what I mean?
No, it's
like, there's
true.
clearly no respect there. And if you want someone else to want to have him, you also have to treat it as though you want to keep him, you know?
They've dropped the ball in in a variety of ways in the Kuminga situation. Okay, real quick before we move on. So Steph has a year and a half left on his contract, where I think all three of us are in agreement that he'll probably still be a Warrior after that on maybe like one last contract. However long he remains a Golden State Warriors. Do Stephen Curry's Golden State Warriors truly contend again? Yes or no?
I'm going to say no. As much as I'd love to see it, I just don't see a real path to doing so. I mean, even when we look at the possible solutions, surely the Bucks will have a better offer than whatever the Warriors can put together for Giannis if it comes to that. And then when you look at an Anthony Davis situation, you're talking about, okay, what if AD comes in and then within the first 5 games, or as we saw in Dallas, within the first game, he's out for the rest of the year.
I got to tell you, it's the likely scenario that's what would happen.
Exactly.
Sorry, AD.
Yes. No, they don't contend, but yes, they do try. Like
I think I like that edge.
I think they go for it. Yeah. Like I think whatever it is, it presents themselves. Like I think they look at those picks and go like, Steph Curry made this franchise. Like this we all have this because of him. Like we got to try. We're not going out sad with Steph, and I think that's what will happen. It may end up being sad, but I think they're gonna try their best. I guess.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't think they'll contend again, truly contend with Steph on the roster, which is sad. I say that, though, my hedge is that I actually do think if they were to be the team that landed Giannis, I think that they could contend, even with, not a lot around them, because I still think Giannis and Steph are that good. Like, at their best, they're still top 10 players. Like, even Steph is still that good when he's on his game, when he's healthy. Those two guys in the lineup together, put the three of us around them. They could probably scratch out 40 wins. And if you put 3 NBA players around them, they're probably winning 50. I think the way that they would complement each other's game, but that's a very long-winded way of still saying no, because I just don't think the Warriors are going to be the team that lands Giannis. And so I think the Steph era of contention, if it wasn't over already, it ended when Jimmy Butler crumpled to the floor, unfortunate as that is.